Hello guys, welcome to another video. In this video, we will talk about Liechtenstein and why it is one of the hardest countries in Europe and in the world to immigrate to. Liechtenstein is a country in Europe, but unlike most countries in the continent, it rarely makes it to the news and a lot of people don't even know where it is. The reasons behind this are in its size. The country is one of the smallest nations in Europe with just 62 square miles and a population of just around 38,000 inhabitants. Despite being right in the middle of Western Europe, Liechtenstein is neither part of the European Union nor it plans to join the bloc. On top of that, Liechtenstein also does not even have its own currency, as it uses the currency of its western neighbor Switzerland, with whom they are also in a customs union. What Liechtenstein lacks in area, it doesn't lack in wealth. In fact, it has been one of the wealthiest nations in the world for many decades. And here are the topics we're going to cover in this video. How to get a residence permit in Liechtenstein, how to become a citizen of Liechtenstein, and finally, the advantages and disadvantages of living in this beautiful principality. And before we start, you already know it, if you want to travel, move or invest abroad, hit the like button, check our other videos, book a consultation call with me, the link is in the description, and most importantly, subscribe! Let's start. We're gonna start with getting a residence permit in Liechtenstein. If you are looking to get a residence permit in Liechtenstein, know that the odds of getting one are really low. Even if you work in Liechtenstein, that does not mean that you have the right to live in the country. Since Liechtenstein is not part of the European Union, it is very difficult even for residents and citizens of countries in the region to get a residence permit in Liechtenstein. Switzerland is one of the two countries that has a land border with Liechtenstein, and even if Liechtenstein has a number of agreements with Switzerland and uses the Swiss currency, it does not mean that Swiss nationals can live in Liechtenstein unrestrictedly. So, basically there's a number of residence permits issued to EU and Swiss citizens in Liechtenstein, but the number is just a few dozens per year, depending on the category. If you are not a Swiss or a citizen from the European Economic Area, it is even harder to get a residence permit in Liechtenstein. But if you are highly skilled and have been offered a job in the country, or if you are married to a Liechtensteiner, it may be possible to get it. So the easiest options to get a residence permit in Liechtenstein are actually quite hard. If your partner is from Liechtenstein or a resident in Liechtenstein, he or she can bring you to live in the country, but not without having a letter from a bank in the country showing that he or she can support your stay without becoming a social burden in Liechtenstein. Alternatively, if you are from Switzerland or the EEA, you can apply to live in Liechtenstein without gainful employment. Basically, if you are very rich and want to live in Liechtenstein, you may have a chance of getting a residence permit, but this is also limited to a quota. Finally, if you are not from Switzerland or a country in the European Economic Area, you can still move to Liechtenstein if you are a highly skilled person, like a company director for example, but it cannot be any company. It better be a very serious one. The final decision will depend on the government and how relevant your job is. Now let's talk about permanent residency in Liechtenstein. If you manage to get a temporary residence permit in Liechtenstein, which is in itself a quite difficult process, you may want to start considering getting a permanent residence permit in the country. Getting permanent residency in Liechtenstein is actually not as hard as getting your initial temporary residence permit. If you manage to live 5 consecutive years in Liechtenstein, you can apply for permanent residency in the country. And now the most difficult part, getting citizenship in Liechtenstein. As we already understood, moving to Liechtenstein is quite difficult, even if you are a citizen of Switzerland or the European Union. But what is even harder in Liechtenstein is to actually become a citizen of the country. If your father and/or mother were citizens of Liechtenstein by the time of your birth, you may be one of the few lucky ones in the world who gets citizenship in Liechtenstein automatically. If you're not among them, there is a naturalization process available in Liechtenstein, but it is a rather complicated one. Currently, the law states that for one to get citizenship in Liechtenstein, it is required to live 30 years in the country, being the last 5 years prior to the application of continuous residency in the principality. There are some other cases which may reduce your time requirement in the country in order to become a citizen of Liechtenstein. Those include cases of residents married to Liechtenstein nationals, and there are some other exceptions as well. Dual citizenship is just partially accepted in Liechtenstein. So if you are a citizen of Liechtenstein and you want to get citizenship in another country, this is possible. However, if you move from another country and want to become a citizen of Liechtenstein, you will have to renounce your previous citizenship. Another interesting fact about Liechtenstein is that it was one of the first countries in the world to offer citizenship by investment, if not the first. However, this program, which started early in the previous century, has long been suspended. Currently, as we have discussed, Liechtenstein is one of the hardest countries to immigrate to and to get citizenship. Now I'm gonna talk a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages of living in Liechtenstein. We're gonna start with the advantages, which are plentiful. One of the most evident advantages of living in Liechtenstein is that the country is extremely wealthy, and this reflects on a high quality of life for its residents. If you manage to live and work in Liechtenstein, even if you earn the local average salary, you'll be earning much more than the average salary in most countries in the world. The current national average salary is about 5,500 Swiss francs, or roughly $6,000 per month. Add to that, you will have the beautiful alpine landscape to enjoy every day, every single day, in an extremely safe and clean environment. Another important advantage of Liechtenstein is its privileged geographic location. Despite its small size, Liechtenstein is located in one of the most central and wealthiest regions in Western Europe. From the capital, Vaduz, you are just 100 kilometers from Zurich, one of the wealthiest cities in Europe, with direct flights to most capitals in Europe and to most important cities in North America and Asia. To the east, you have Austria, which is the other country that borders Liechtenstein together with Switzerland. Liechtenstein is also a relatively short drive to northern Italy and southern Germany. The last advantage I'd like to point out is that in Liechtenstein, taxes are very low, especially when we talk about income taxes compared to Western European standards. If we take the example of personal income taxes, Liechtenstein uses a progressive tax rate, where the highest rate is just 8%. If we compare it with its immediate neighbor Austria, where the highest personal rate is 55%, Liechtenstein is doing pretty well. Liechtenstein also has communal taxes, depending on which town you live in, but overall taxes are much lower than most countries in Western Europe. And finally, we come to the disadvantages of living in Liechtenstein, which are definitely not plentiful. One of the main disadvantages of living in Liechtenstein is that the country is tiny. Even during my short stay in Liechtenstein, I could feel that if I were to stay longer in the Principality, the options of entertainment, for example, would be very limited. Regarding access to products and services, the small size of the country is not much of a problem though. This is due to the fact that, since Liechtenstein and Switzerland have been for a long time in a customs union, it is very easy for Liechtensteiners to have access to products and services in Switzerland. The second and the last disadvantage of living in Liechtenstein is related to its high cost of living. The high cost of living is another problem if you are moving to Liechtenstein, as the country's currency is the Swiss franc and the economy of Liechtenstein is strongly related to that of Switzerland. You can expect to find prices in Liechtenstein to be very comparable to those in Switzerland. Switzerland, as you probably know, is one of the most expensive countries to live in Europe, but just like Liechtenstein, the quality of life and salaries are also pretty high. If you move to Liechtenstein for a job, you will find that your local purchasing power is pretty good, and when you travel abroad to almost all countries in the world, you will have the impression that most places are very cheap when compared to those in Vaduz. That's it for today's video. If you think there's another country which is even harder to immigrate to than Liechtenstein, write a comment down below. And to end the video, the usual gibberish. If you want to travel, move or invest abroad, hit the like button. Check our other videos. We have plenty of videos with a number of destinations if you want to move temporarily or permanently. Book a consultation call with me, the link is in the description. And most importantly, subscribe. See you next time.